Geometry Wars is best known as the game we're looking at today, the mold-breaking launch game for the Xbox 360, which at the incredibly low price of $5 became one of the most immediately popular titles on the brand new console and solidified Xbox Live Arcade's place in the market for years to come. But the creation of Retro Evolved is a fascinating tale that starts long before that. It was originally created as a minigame for the original Project Gotham Racing. Instead of just including another new version of Geometry Wars in the latest PGR that came out at the launch of the Xbox 360, Bazaar decided to spin it off, releasing it by itself on launch day, a choice that would prove quite beneficial for them. The main difference between the original minigame and the game released on the 360 is the evolved part from the game's title. A version with slightly tweaked mechanics and greatly improved visual effects and flares, despite the wireframe graphics remaining more or less the same. On its release, Geometry Wars was regarded as perhaps the best of the Xbox 360 launch titles, because it really is a traditional arcade game in all the best ways. A high score chase that did a fantastic job of showing off what cheap downloadable games could be at their very best. All my earliest and most cherished memories of the Xbox 360 involve competing with friends on the Geometry Wars leaderboards. And that part of the game still remains fun, even though my friends' scores sit at astronomical, almost unreachable heights for someone coming back to the game after years away like I am. And it still works so well because it is the traditional arcade game. It just feels like so many games for the arcade do, and I would rank it pretty high up there if I were to include it when listing the all-time great repetitive score-chasing games out there. The fact that it's not very complicated, a pretty simple dual joystick shooter with very easy to understand mechanics and a high skill ceiling make it an eternal classic. And you'll notice that I've barely mentioned the mechanics up to this point, and that's because there's not really a lot to talk about. There are enemies that are roaming around the screen that use different kinds of mechanics, and you have to shoot them, and it's a dual joystick shooter. That's pretty much all there is to the game. It's pretty basic, but it's everything around the game that make it so incredible and such a classic. I should be clear, though, that I'm talking about the evolved mode here. Retro mode, which bears a lot of similarities to the original PGR minigame, is still present in the XBLA release, but I never really knew anyone who ever touched that mode. All the competition was always in evolved. That's all anyone ever played. That's not to say retro mode is particularly bad or anything, it's just lacking those little additional touches and visual flares that help make evolved a more engaging experience. Between the basic but high-resolution graphics and the timeless gameplay, Geometry Wars Retro Evolved is still eminently playable today, and extremely enjoyable. Even at 13 years old, the leaderboard chase is just as fun as it always has been, and the game itself holds up in the same way that the all-time arcade classics do. In my retro reviews, I look at games that are at least 10 years old, what I would consider to be retro, and I see if they've held up today, if they're still worth playing now. If you like that idea, be sure to subscribe so you can see the latest videos. If you like this video in particular, be sure to hit that like button, and thanks for watching.